Okay, so I will introduce myself. I'm Dr. Simon Webber. I'm the Lodge President for Wellington Branch. I've been a member of the Society for 33 years yesterday. I joined the Society on 12th of June 1990 as a young man. I met my wife Sushma at the international headquarters in India. So I've kind of worked at all levels of the organization. So the society itself is governed internationally by the General Council, which is made up of heads of each individual country. So we met at the international headquarters, which is in Chennai, Adyar. So I've worked as the president here, secretary. I've worked as the president of the Hamilton branch and secretary there. And I did a lot of work as a young member in the Auckland Lodge where I first joined HPB Lodge in Auckland. And I've been on the governance board as well, which does the governance of the society in New Zealand. I guess I have a passion into finding out what's real and true, and I like the Eastern mysticism. Many members have a particular bent. I like kind of Eastern mysticism, whereas Bill here, he's got a lot on the Christian side of mysticism, if you like. So that was my kind of focus, I guess. But yeah, I like to study everything, and of late, which we'll have a think about tonight, is what it really means to look at karma. So that's a bit about me, and yeah, we'll get underway. Alrighty. Okay. I'll just minimize that. All right, so the law of karma, or law of cause and effect, is a cosmic law, and everything in the universe runs to this. We have cyclicity, day, night, black, white. Everything is operating to this law. So when scientists talk about nature's laws, fundamentally, in a way, you could say that it's talking about the law of karma, because the suggestion is there is an intelligence, if you like, God, whatever you want to call it, that sits behind the physical manifestation of the universe. So these nature's laws are held in place for certain purposes, for evolution, and these are intelligences behind what we call karma or law. We wake up every morning, all else being equal, and our bodies are held together, our minds are still functioning, our emotions are functioning. That is because of laws, biological and at our level, and superphysical at the inner or subtler realms of nature. So in the Christian tradition, it talks about, for example, what one sows, one reaps. So if I don't go to work and I don't report in sick, my boss is going to get really angry, and I might get fired, and I won't get paid, etc. It's pretty simple, right? And you can talk about, like, you've heard phrases like instant karma. You walk in front across the road without looking where you're going. You've got a good chance of having an instant karma event by getting hit by a traffic vehicle. So it's essentially a law that, if we think about it and understand it, can help us change our life and how we live. And that's the sense why tonight we're having a look at it in this way, because it's all about application. What's the point of knowing something unless we actually apply it, and it can help us. So understanding that ultimately we are responsible for our own actions gives us some power, if you like, some knowledge to say, okay, I can actually now start to redirect how I live, which is, and that, if you like, the universe is working with me in this way, which we'll get to shortly. Okay, so we'll have a look at different types of karma. So there's unripe and ripe karma. So this, if you take into the ideas of what we've looked at earlier in the course, reincarnation and life after death, then and we take those ideas to have some bearing on our life, then if what we reap we sow, we set in place causes, then not all of those causes are going to be brought to bear or come to fruition in one particular incarnation. So from life to life, and through many lives through evolution, as human beings, we have generated karma, and these effects we can experience in this particular life or in lives to come. And what we call, if you like to think about in theosophical framework, the lords of karma, or these spiritual intelligences who ensure that everything, as we said, in nature works to balance, to order. So whatever we do in our life, good or bad, so to speak, nature will be able to ensure that those effects that we put in place happen to us. So unright karma is where we may have put in place some causes, but the effects are not yet manifest with us, or are manifesting with us in a particular incarnation. Whereas ripe karma is essentially what we've got here at this time with us. So if you think about in our daily life, we have certain habits we might do. You know, I might have a beer after work on Friday. My brother has big parties on Friday every night after work. God help his neighbors, but they all come over actually. Anyway, but it's like that is what he's kind of done over many months, years. So it's a tradition. It's a standard thing. There's a force set in motion. He will always have Friday nights for his beers. So that is a result of energies reaching, if you like, a saturation point where mentally and emotionally you have an intention, and then finally it manifests physically because it's built up so much, it has to express itself. So therefore it manifests on the physical plane. So, which means if we have some particular habits or tendencies, whatever they might be, and understanding that it comes more primarily from what we think and feel and ultimately manifests on the physical realm, we can then start to redirect how we actually live by thinking differently, feeling differently, and ultimately changing how we behave. So it's a redirection of energies, if you like, which has a consequence at the physical level of behaving in a certain way, changing our behavior. For example, you might have a point where something will just click and you'll go, yes, I'm going to live totally differently. Like for myself, when I was 22, you know, I never drunk much, but I had a few beers and I tried to do some meditation. And then one morning I tried to meditate and I couldn't because my head was exploding. Not that I wasn't, you know, getting drunk or anything. I had a couple of beers the night before relaxing. And then that was it. It was like no more. So I gave up drinking and that was it. So that was a result of having, if you like, I'd been kind of thinking about meditation, inquiring, because I joined the society as a young man. And the fact that I'd had put that in motion, it took that instance of, you know, just having a couple of beers on Friday night and then trying to meditate the next morning was a breakthrough point where it seemed like a miracle, but it just happened and nothing, I wasn't going to behave in that way anymore. So these things can happen as well. So ripe karma is pretty much what we're doing right here and now, and anything that we might have to learn in this incarnation, that's with us. Bearing in mind that the suggestion is nothing is given to us that we can't handle. And we've always got support from our, you know, obviously our friends and family, but also from the inner realms, if we're trying to do the best we can. Okay. So again, I've touched a little bit there on present karma. So that relates to, you know, those energies, physical, emotional, mental, that we put in place here and now. in this particular time. And also, in a sense, like if you say you play a game or a rugby or sport or whatever it might be, obviously you bump into a few people on the field, but that's kind of all that's going to happen. There won't be any further interaction with those individuals. So if you might have bumped someone, accidentally injured them, that won't have any effects in another life because it's totally at the physical level. So it's like bumping into someone on the street, oh, sorry about that, and you carry on. Whereas if, for example, we think about someone emotionally and mentally, or whether it's, we love them in that way or think otherwise of them in a not so loving way, then those effects, if they haven't been resolved during the incarnation, can carry on in another life. So there's types of karma: physical, which is just purely physical with no emotional and mental quantity, and there's no carryover at the physical level at those types of karma. But if you're putting in causes and effects into operation, but if there is emotional and mental, then that can be carried over. In nature, the lords of karma, if you like, those intelligences, will ensure that that happens, because the universe works in balance. We're all meant to be in harmony, and karma is just the rebalancing, if you like, maintaining that balance. So humans have a special place, if you like, in the evolution, because we have the option, if you like, to choose right and wrong, as it were. We can actually sit and weigh, is this right or is this not? And that's, a great responsibility, because ultimately, as we've had on our study course going this far, and we'll have a little bit more in a couple of weeks on the spiritual path, humans ultimately will become, as it's said in the Christian tradition, become perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect, which means we understand who and what we really are, which is more than just flesh and blood, according to the spiritual traditions. So in that sense, we have a choice whether how we act, how we feel, and how we think, which has karmic consequences in carrying from life to life. So yeah, it's being a nice human is great to help everyone out. Okay, so then we have collective karma. So our family, our friends, and even the countries we get incarnated into, if you take that premise to have some credence, is we're brought together with groups of people that we may have worked or been with before. I remember seeing there was a picture of it was an article in the paper about a family, a couple of families, and they'd been on holiday when they were a lot younger, and the children were young, and a boy and a girl, they were about 5 or 6. They met each other on the holiday. They've been, holidaying at the same thing. And they played all through the holidays together, and the parents had pictures and stuff. And like 20 odd years later, a man and a woman got married, and they realized, checking the pictures and things like that, that it was the kids that were on holiday like 20 odd years before. So there was a kind of story there that there was some connection, that they were meant to be together, if you like, coming together collectively, collective karma, if you like, to go through their life together. So I thought that story was quite nice, because love, in a sense, binds us just as well as dislike as well. So we come together as family and friends, and as nations. And it's also interesting, particular nations, if you like, or if you can think about it, have, I guess, different attributes or karmic attributes, if you like. I know the Kiwis are pretty laid back, but if you talk to some, Australians, they're pretty straight out. And I had a friend, Sush and I were talking to a friend, actually just in a cafe. We'd met a woman, she's on holiday from Canada, and she said she was on a cruise, and there was some Canadians, some Kiwis, some Australians, and some Americans. And the Americans and Australians were really getting into a heated discussion. So the Kiwis and the Gays got up and left them to it. So, you know, it was kind of like every kind of nation, if you like, or country has particular focus. Also is what I call like cosmic karma. So there are things that need to actually occur in the process of evolution. So the Theosophical Society was founded in 1875, but it was said at that time there was other work started alongside it that was in secret. No one knows what it is. But the suggestion is that that particular activity had to happen as part of evolution from the gods, if you like, the higher powers. So it must happen at all cost. Whereas the Theosophical Society is essentially an experiment, because for the first time in modern history, all of this type of teaching was brought together under one roof at one time in a undogmatic way. Prior to that, it had all been in the mystery schools, hidden and it wasn't available. Particularly if you think about in the Middle Ages when the Inquisition was on. So there's certain things that have to happen. Also, about Atlantis, the humans at that time were, according to theosophical framework, were endowed with more, if you like, superphysical attributes, and they misused those powers. So the higher powers had to basically submerge, if you like, that continent. So there's experiments happening in evolution on humanity. Some of them are known, some of them are not, but there are certain things that have to happen. And even the formation of this organization by the founders, spiritual teachers, because the argument is spirituality is hierarchical, and there are those who are evolved higher than others who have responsibilities. If you think about the Buddha, he is a human being who has evolved to that level, and yet there are those who are more evolved than him. And he would say that. I'm not saying anything new that other Buddhas before me haven't said. So the teachers of those perfect human beings who've learned all there is to learn through human evolution, who had to ask their bosses to start this society, because their bosses thought it was too early to bring this knowledge to the world in 1875 under one roof. Bearing in mind at that time there was a lot of materialistic outlook, a lot of spiritualistic outlook, but the decision was made for the society to be started, and it's still here 147 years later, because the ideals and values that we talked about in the introduction obviously resonate with us. So just some general thoughts. Whatever we do is never lost. So any effort we make is with us always, forever, because the suggestion is in the theosophical framework, we incarnate, we learn, and what we learn is with us. And when we start our next incarnation, all those tendencies and attributes we have. So if you think about like Mozart, that, you know, those geniuses, Einstein, etc., they've got all those tendencies. But I did my PhD in behavioral psychology, and I can tell you this: you can't learn all that in the first few years of your life. Okay, so you have those tendencies that are there because they've already been developed in lives before. So whatever we do here, whatever effort we make, is ours, because there are no rewards in heaven apart from what we generate ourselves. What we sow, we reap. So that is a great thing about the law of karma and evolution and God, the divine, whatever you want to call it, that it is based on love, and what we're all part of that one life. It's in us right now. We are that, and whatever we do, you know, is not lost, because it operates on love and balance and harmony. And so we're born into situations that is best for evolution. For my own self, I was born, I grew up down south, the bottom of South Island, but I lost my mother when I was a kid, and 10 years later, I'm here inquiring into the nature of life. So I see that sad at the time, but it's like a catalyst, you know. Here I am inquiring into why all of that had to happen. So, and I'm still here doing some service, which is nice. So, and even though it's tough, you know, to lose a parent or whatever situation you might have in your own life, if we can work through it, you know, we could get a different perspective over time and come to a different a level of awareness, if you like. With genetics, they are the effect, but not the cause. So if we take in the idea that whatever we do from life to life affects what we're going to do later in a following life. Like I have one of our DCEs at work. She's only got one arm. Very efficient, very focused. You know, does her work great. Sorry.
What is the DCE?
Oh, Deputy Chief Executive. Sorry, my apologies. Yeah. So yeah, and she's great, you know, but it's like whatever has happened for her as a reason to have only half an arm and a full one that works. That's, I don't know why, but her having that birth, that is a genetic effect because of whatever causes, and we can't say what they are, obviously, so we don't know. It's just the fact of whatever situation we find ourselves in genetically in our bodies are the result of our previous actions. So tonight I go to sleep, I ain't going to wake up in the morning looking like a young Arnold Schwarzenegger, because I haven't done any I haven't done any of the work previously to look like that, right? So, you know, or whatever it might be. So unless we put in the work genetically, there will be no change. So in terms of accidents, it's interesting because there can be accidents that are just purely accidents, and in some cases, some things are not accidents and might have to be. But yeah, it's interesting in the sense that, like, if someone, for example, passes away when they're young, and it was maybe an accident, then they won't be able to incarnate, if you like, until they've spent the rest of that time on the other side that was allotted to them on the physical earth. So you might get hit by a car or something at 20, but you were going to have some time on this and during this incarnation till you're about 80. So you've got another 60 odd years on the other side before you come back. And also in terms of remembering past lives, we had on reincarnation last week, and some, you know, young children do remember their lives, their past lives. But as a general rule, it's nature's way, if you like, to start us off afresh. So when we incarnate, we get a new personality, which is a new physical body, a new mind, and new emotions. The tendencies that we got in the previous life are retained, but we don't actually remember the specifics because we've got a whole new brain, whole new mind, whole new emotions, although everything corresponds, okay? So it's designed in a sense to help us start afresh. Just imagine if we remembered everything we'd ever done during this time round. It would be pretty insane. Yeah. I think that's all I formally have to present. So happy to take, you know, some questions and chat. Is there anything on the chat, Sushi? Oh yeah, okay, stop sharing. Okay. Okay.
So can I just ask a question about free will?
Yep.
The position of theosophical teachings that there is free will. But like in a deterministic universe, a causal determinism, that we can go back in time and look at every previous event leading to this current event to the beginning of time. But within that, you can either hold the idea that we have free will, that we have a degree of free will, or in fact we have no free will, because we live in a deterministic universe, like a Newtonian mechanical marching forward universe, where even these words that are coming out of my mouth were predetermined.
I thought a lot about this many years, and I thought this analogy. You see people when they walk their dogs, they've got those little like, sausage dog type things on those long leaves, and they run off all over the place.
Why would they do that?
Hang on, Blake. So that the dogs can run around and do whatever, right? They've got some degree of freedom, but their master, their owner, is taking them in a certain direction, nevertheless, right? So
sausage dog, is there?
Well, whatever kind of dog it is, I just see those little dogs and those little leaves, they run everywhere, right? So
isn't it bound to serve something? How you render service. So it's like you have free will, but there's still like parts and parcels of rendering service.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. So essentially, so the universe is evolving. It has a purpose to do some stuff, right? This spark of the divine, whatever you want to call it, within us, it's evolving, and we're going with it. Now, we have some degree of free will, if you like, on a lead. We're off running around doing our stuff, to free to do as we wish. But ultimately, we're going to go in a certain direction, right? We're on a train. We can go to the buffet car. We can go to our cabin, whatever. But we're going in a certain direction. But there will be a point when our free will start to decrease, and we'll get to the point Jesus said in the Christian tradition, not my will, that God's will be done. Okay, so while we're here at this level, we can have some degree of free will, do what we feel is right, because you've got to listen to your conscience ultimately and serve, as you say. So in doing that, we're actually giving up our free will. We're making a sacrifice of our own personal interest for the good of the whole. But a lot of the time, we're running around on a lead doing our own thing, right? But there will be a point in time where we think, actually, it's better to work for the whole rather than just myself. And then the amount of free will decreases until ultimately there's just one will, and that's thy will be done. He cried on the cross, let this cup pass from me. He didn't want to, but he symbolized what all we have to go through. And it can do it at every level, right? Whatever we're doing in our daily life, we can give up something for someone else. So, yeah, Bill.
Well, something in a way which may be related in some mind about whether there's such a thing as an accident. I think it should be at least known that several of our great seers in the Theosophical Society have investigated this, and they've done it by raising their consciousness to the higher planes, and they say that there isn't the faintest possibility of an accident. C.W. Ledbetter said that, and I know Jeffrey Hodgson said it from their investigation. It may appear to be an accident, but in actual fact, everything is caused in some extraordinary way. We just can't see the causal connection always.
Hmm. Did everyone hear that? Yeah. Okay. Good. Thanks, Bill. Yep.
How does intention become?
How does what? Intention.
You have good intention to create this harm.
Okay, so motive, you're right. Intention, motive is very, very important. That's the key, because it determines what the effect will be and the karmic consequences of the action. Yeah, so motive is the key. So if you have a good intent, even though there might, what the world might call a not so good outcome, the higher power, the gods, if you like, it's more important to have the right intent, you know, because that's key to everything. Because we're trying to listen to our conscience, to do what is right, to be more aligned with the one, and doing that for that reason, that is paramount. This motive is the, you know, is everything. So yeah, absolutely. So it's all about right action, not the results of action. In the Bhagavad-Gita, in the Hindu tradition, it focuses on dharma, on right action. So do what you feel is right according to what is good and what is right with you in terms of what you feel, what you think, and let the results take care of themselves. So it's always about intent and motive, right action, listening to your conscience, doing your dharma, and whatever the results will be, but you've done it for the right reason at any level. Yeah.
Can I just add, I think it's to do with being more unselfish intention, and not just about you. Is there someone to do it? Repeat what Pam said.
Sorry,
Please repeat for the online what Pam said.
did everyone hear what Pam said?
No, please repeat. I wasn't doing my teaching.
Doing your teaching voice.
I was just saying with intention, whether you're doing something with a more unselfish motive is important as well, rather than just things for yourself, just thinking.
Yeah, doing it for unselfish motive. Okay, which?
In psychology, there's a sort of a theory, like simplistic, I think it's simplistic. There's a balance between agentic self and communal self. So an agentic self at the extreme, I'm just a selfish little bugger, and buggy Jack, I'm okay, and I'm just going to act purely. You have no need. It's all about you. So that's the extreme. The other one is that you're so bound. Freud spoke about this, to be put in another word. I'm so super ego. I'm so bound in community. I'm so want to serve community so much. I actually sacrifice my own needs, and that's not really a good road. The balance is in your own life, I guess, free will, is to find that balance between your agent self as an agent and self as a communal being. You help somebody because you want to do it, and there's a harmony in that. I think that's regardless of religion or spirit, whatever. But I think there's a core in there, and some people get it, and because of human diversity, some people are anti-sociopaths and other people are saints, and that's too extreme. But for us poor schmucks, we're kind of in the middle. But if you can ride that wave between self as agent and the communal self, you're kind of on a better road.
It's a bit like the golden mean.
Yeah.
Moderation.
There was a question on chat.
Do you want to have a look?
Yeah, it said Malcolm said said that masters take on a pupil's karma.
Oh yeah, okay. So in the spiritual traditions, you hear in the Christian tradition particularly, you hear about discipleship. So where a master or a perfect human being takes on disciples, but in doing that, they take on the responsibility of that student until they have attained perfection. So in the Theosophical framework, they talk about probation period, 7 years of probation, to test the student to make sure that they can basically go the distance. Because in becoming, if you like, because Bill's going to talk about this, the spiritual path through life after life, incarnation after incarnation, we're evolving to learn all there is to be about being a human being, which is basically we are one with God. To get to that state requires a lot of development, physical and super physical. So the student is tested for an entrance exam, if you like, to ensure that they'll be able to, do the job and learn all there is to learn. Is that okay, Malcolm? Oh, you're on mute.
It was sort of related to a broader thing I was thinking about in terms of what was that quote last week about reincarnation being a fact but not the truth? And I was wondering about that in terms of the Christian tradition of salvation and how perhaps that might interweave in a way that can be made sense of in terms of the Maitreya, the Christ taking on the karma of the disciple. So it was a kind of an open question, an open thought about interweaving those two traditions.
Well, okay, Bill, you go. Because you've interweaved two different traditions, and they're quite different in terms of the meaning. But yeah, you go, Bill.
Well, in conventional Christianity, the
Speak up.
concept of the vicarious atonement that Jesus the Christ, through his death and sacrifice, atoned for all our sins, isn't actually coherent with the theosophical way of looking at things. Or let me put it this way, Geoffrey Hodgson, who is my teacher, but a great authority on the Christian faith, said that he believed that the Christ took on a teaching mission. He didn't atone for our sins so much as came to show the way of righteousness, to show how we could actually atone for our own sins by compensation. But I have heard about masters taking on the karma of pupils, but I believe that's a relative description. Sometimes, if it's necessary for a certain work to be done at a particular time, the master may take on a certain karma by way of adjustment so that the pupil can be ready to do that work. So it's an exception made in the scheme of things, an exception rather than the rule. So that's the way I understand it from my studies and from wiser people than I, like Geoffrey Hodgson and C.W. Leadbeater, who knew the inner workings of things, that by and large were responsible for our own karma. And if the master intervenes, it is for a specific reason or an exception for some urgent work to be done.
Okay, like,
Can I hear more about these superhuman attributes of the Atlanteans, or is that outside the scope of the?
okay, so okay. So did you hear all that?
Also had his hand up.
Okay,
Repeat the question.
okay, we're gonna come. We'll have Blake's question, and then we'll come back to Ganesh online. Is that right? Okay, all right. So Blake's question is about the attributes of the Atlanteans.
And the use of them, right?
Okay, so essentially, there's different kind of humans evolving, and our bodies change throughout time. The suggestion is we've been here for millions of years, and that we actually didn't come from the apes, but I won't go into that right now. That's just something to think about. So the Atlantean times, they were emphasizing emotion and developing emotion. Currently, humans are focusing on the mind and developing mentation. So a lot of faculty was given at the emotional level for the Atlanteans, and they misused it in some sense. So they were able to develop certain capabilities and use their emotions in certain ways, but they use them for, she says, for the motive, for their own self-interest, rather than helping the collective. And it got supposedly out of hand in a big way.
Those ways, though.
Well, there's not much I mean, they had lots of, well, if you think about it, they had more superphysical faculties available to them.
Also, we have to remember it was at the decline of the whole civilization. It went berserk at the end. There was a golden period
So
where evolution was at its peak, but this was going downhill, and they used everything for selfish reasons.
And they were
That's fine.
scientifically advanced.
Oh, way beyond us.
well, the suggestion is a lot of the Americans and the reincarnated Atlanteans, because they've got those technological capabilities to develop all this stuff. But I don't want to go too much more into that. I'm happy to have a chat about the cup of tea, all right, Blake?
We'll
Yeah.
have another session on that.
Okay, Ganesh, online.
Yeah, thank you. This is about actually what about the masters taking the karma of the disciples. Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, you're fine, go.
Okay. You see, my knowledge is, my interpretation is from the book Masters on the Path. I think actually my understanding is, once a person is accepted as a disciple, his karma is linked with that of the master. Okay, not the master takes on the karma of the accepted disciple, but the karma is linked, the master and that of the accepted people. I like to think about, give an example. Okay, this is a mundane example. For example, the company which I work, electrical company, there was a new apprentice who was under the stewardship of a foreman. It's an accepted apprentice under that foreman. What happened was, when they did a job, I think there was an accident. It was a kind of a very severe accident. The person who was responsible was the foreman, not the, even though the apprentice was involved, the charge was laid on the foreman because he has taken the responsibility of training that apprentice. And that apprentice was completely under the control of, supposed to have been under the control of the foreman. So whatever he does, I think it affects the foreman. Okay, I think this is the way I interpret it, because I have not read about what Jeffrey Hodgson's book, but my understanding is only from Masters on the Path and the Leadbeaters. And my understanding is the karma is linked. One, I mean, this is not all the disciples. When a person comes as an accepted chela, accepted people, then the karma is interlinked. That is one of the reasons actually the students have to have quite a lot of respect towards the teacher, and also the teacher has got quite a bit of a liability that they don't accept everyone as a chela to be trained by them, unless they are quite sure. I think actually you mentioned about the probation period. That is also the reason that the student is right. I think I can take the responsibility. Sorry, I think if I had made it clear, I do not know whether you understood. That's my understanding. I think, I mean, I don't say it is the final one. Please think about the possibility and thank you.
Can it work in reverse? Like, say you join an institution or a company that is corrupt, do you have bad karma by joining them? For example, might be the Nazi party. If I join the Nazis, I'm suddenly a Nazi, and my take on good come from it's pretty straight.
It depends what you do in that organization. If you're ascribing to their values and behaving in accordance with it, absolutely. But if you're not, then you probably would leave, hopefully, and go off and do something more.
For a lot of big companies might have practices
Yeah,
but you're sitting there.
Exactly.
as
No, no.
Personal secretary, you're not really in the fray per se, but you are contributing to lots of functionality.
it's interesting. There's a little book called in the Theosophical tradition, little book called Light on the Path. And it says, when you come to the tree of knowledge, you understand right from wrong. There's a choice that has to be made. And it's a simple choice, as it were, not really a choice. You either behave positively or negatively. You either act altruistically or selfishly. Now, if you come to that tree of knowledge and you join a company and you know what's going on and you facilitate knowingly, then the karmic consequences are worse than, say, if you're just sitting as secretary and obviously not knowing too much, right? Even though you're in the same company. But if you're knowing what's happening and you're doing it, the karmic consequences are more severe because you, well, this is the whole point.
There is also a nation karma as well.
Yes, so
There,
where does
there,
that leave,
there are several types of collectives.
where does that leave us as, you know, in cahoots with the Chinese when we know that the Falun Gong thing is happening in their land? How does that leave education?
Well,
Are we
so-
the little state?
Yeah.
Well, it comes down again to the matter of degree, right? You and I sitting here, I don't have much to do with any country and whatever they're doing in their practices, right? But if I'm the Prime Minister and I'm going to meetings and knowing what's going on, then actually my karmic responsibility is more severe than just the average citizen, because we don't have much interaction with what's going on, unless by chance we're working in an organization, we travel there and we participate or whatever. So it depends. Again, it depends on what our dharma is, what we're doing in our world, in our life, on a daily basis. I'm not involved too much in my organization at the higher realms. I do what I do at my level. Similarly, we're citizens doing what we're doing. But the Prime Minister and the head of the SIS or whoever it might be, they have more information. It's like President Trump, right? He's on trial for having his information stored in the shower and the bathroom all over the place, right? So he actually knew what was going on, but he's got more responsibility than you and I. So he's going to have more, there'll be more severe consequences. So it comes down to knowledge.
Also, we have to remember when we know that all this happening, what is our attitude? Like there are 20 of us here thinking about the positive side of it. So it's our choice at every point. What are you strengthening? So the more you think of the bad things that are happening, you're actually strengthening it. So the only way to do is counterbalance. Again, that's karma. So we have to do what's positive and uplifting. If something's going down, you bring it back up.
Okay, Sylvia.
Is that what it's called, shared?
Shared karma, yeah.
Collective karma, actually.
Yeah. See, we're all here as members of society and friends inquiring, right? Now, if one of us starts creating mayhem and upsetting the harmony, you know, the analogy, one bad apple spoils the whole cart, right? That's not good. And if we're all like that, we wouldn't be having an orderly meeting. We wouldn't be able to actually sit here peacefully and inquire into the nature of reality of karma. So working together as a group, we need to be harmonious. So that's nice, you know, it's good. But then at our own level and what we're doing in the world, we also have our responsibilities individually. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Could I ask a question about mechanics of karma from the Theosophical Society viewpoint?
If I can answer it, because essentially we know some generalities, because the specifics of the mechanics, if you like, of karma, no one in the society knows, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I was just.
But we know some general stuff, which is what we covered tonight.
There is a comment in the chat where
Oh, yeah.
Maureen says that you can't actually know how the law of karma works until you're above it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yes. Sure.
So do you have a fixed answer in terms of division of consciousness into remaining coherent between reincarnations, or is it more of a fluid model? Having single consciousness in a bucket of a person, single person, or is it more of a fluid model of there is consciousness, there might be some in one person, and it might sort of impact somewhere?
I would say it'd be both, because the God, the one, is in us right now, and it's in all of us, in this heater and here. There's no dead matter, it's in us. but it's expressing itself differently. So in a human being, it's a fully individualized unit, self-conscious. In this computer, in this heater, in this whiteboard, it's not so, what's the word? Huh?
Self-aware.
Yeah, that's it, self-aware. Good. So absolutely. So it's both. Yeah. Yep.
Simon, can I say a few things about mixed karma?
Yep.
Both in the lives of individuals and of nations. Some good things are done, and also some bad things. And just take, for example, China that was mentioned. Obviously, the Falun Gong situation is bad, but on the other hand, modern China has removed starvation from its people, which is very prevalent not too long ago. And so there's a sort of balance in the sense that, well, on the one hand, something unfair and unjust is being done, and on the other hand, something very useful has been done. And thankfully, it's not our job to apportion the appropriate amount of blame or otherwise, although I must say that the United States does tend to stand in judgment on everyone else, and it doesn't look at its own failures. But this is typical not only of the United States, but of many individuals. They criticize other people, but they don't look very closely at what they're doing themselves. And thankfully, the lords of karma, who you referred to, these great archangelic-like beings, have the task of doing the karmic adjustment for individuals and nations. So the responsibility of apportioning blame, etc., or reward is out of our hands, really.
Yeah, I mean, bigger souls have bigger responsibilities and bigger karmic consequences to deal with, bigger deals to deal with, as it were. I mean, Jiddu Krishnamurti, Indian sage, he said, sort out your own backyard before you sort out another's. If we could all do that, the world would be a better place, But, we're creating here a nucleus of unity, if you like. So having like-minded individuals working together, which is what Sushma referred to in terms of changing consciousness, because that's what essentially we're doing, the thought power and the environment. Because this building is 100 years old, and there's been these positive energies flowing out into the community for 100 years. And that has an effect because it's subtle and it affects people's consciousness, even though it's not more direct, say like, work the Salvation Army might do or something like that. It's more subtler, but it does have an effect. And that's what we talked about in terms of how we live affects, people around us and the consequences of that. So nothing is ever lost. So yeah, it's great.
I like that idea from Marcus Aurelius that our thoughts dictate the quality of our lives. I thought we're focusing, saving coming together for an hour or so to talk about these ideas would be a good use of time.
Yeah.
Because it's bringing it down into the physical manifestation when you're discussing it, and then you never know when something might come up once you've left here.
Oh, exactly. I mean, these ideas, parts of them will be circulating for the rest of the evening, possibly into the dream state tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
We also some of our seers, like Jeffrey Hodgson and other seers, when we collectively, when we meditate and you build up that form of life, and the same with a church service, when you finish, it's important to have the blessing, because that opens your lotus and spreads the energy right out into the community around wherever you're meditating or discussing or having your devotional service. So each of the things that we do like that does help to bring us a little above the tide.
Okay, so taking that into account, I've just done a quick mathematical calculation because it's units squared. There's 34 of us or so online and in the lodge, right? So 34 times 34 is 1156 units of energy created, if you like, of effect, of consciousness, because it's squared. So, yeah, really nice. Okay.
There are two comments on the
Okay,
chat.
go.
Malcolm has a question. Following on from Mr. Ganesh, does being a Buddhist or Christian or Islamic, etc., link you to the karma of the teachers of those religions? Good question. Any comment?
Not in Islam.
No.
No.
I mean, the teaching of karma?
No, it's not very prevalent because we don't believe in Islam doesn't believe in life after death. It doesn't believe in you.
Okay, did you hear that, Malcolm?
I think it's more your karma to be born in a certain religion, to learn the lessons of those religions, more than the link to the main teacher.
Yeah, I mean, there is a link, obviously. You subscribe to those teachings. I like kind of the Eastern traditions, but I'm getting more into the mystical side of Christianity at the moment. There's a great book by Dr. Ravi Ravindra called The Yoga of the Christ, Gospel Commentary on the Gospel of John. And Ravi Ravindra, obviously he's born in India, but he taught in Canada, and he's written many, many books. We've got some of them in the library. You can look them up online and find really good stuff. He's a physicist, but he did philosophy and religion, and he's looked at the Eastern traditions and the Western traditions, and it's really, really good stuff. There's another one here from Ganesh. My understanding is that the relationship between an accepted disciple and the teacher, I may have many students being taught by me, and one student who does his project under my guidance, and if that student is carrying out his project under my guidance, blows up the lab, then I become responsible as well, but not what the other students do. Yeah, and that's kind of what he was saying before with the apprentice analogy. You are responsible, hence,
Anyway, all that is Bill's topic next week on the spiritual path.
Yes, Bill is talking on the spiritual path next week. That's great.
Maybe we can cover some of those questions next week.
Yeah, there's still a lot to be explored.
We are starting another study course afterwards, so all of you come along. It takes lifetimes to understand these things anyway.
What is the next study?
Okay, so
We'll wait and see.
yeah, we're going to have a think about that. Committee's got to get to have a think.
That's a mystery.
Yeah.
It's a mystery.
Well, we've had like stuff on mysticism. I mean, there's a lot of new folk here. It's great to see you. Why have you come? What would you be interested in hearing? Because the society is, open to all. It's presenting all of these teachings in an open manner, no authorities, no dogmas. So what brought you here? What would you be interested to know about? And was tonight of use,
I've just got something to say on the matter of karma. For the next week or so, have a look at what happens to you in your life and also cast your memory back over your life and see if you think that any of it was attributable to karma. Whether it's through the parents, for example, or whatever the case may be. Yeah,
Now you're talking about a little exercise about cosmic karma, not
all kinds, everything.
All types.
Just have a think about it over the next week and just see what you make of the concept as it affects you personally.
You can witness it pretty immediately. Like I've eaten too many of these lollies, right? My stomach's churning.
And you didn't hand them around, right? I never got one.
You've already created karma on distraction.
I have.
Yeah, by trying to distribute.
Are they pineapple lumps? Is that correct? Yeah.
We could raise a village.
Blake is eating pineapple lumps and milk bottles, which he ate last week as well. I remember.
I'll take some.
Okay.
For the mixed karma, he's gaining merit by sharing food, but he's gaining demerit by distracting the meeting. Karma works.
Is that your-
Maybe
It's
it's
always
very
mixed.
too much of a meeting.
Yeah, adding value.
Okay,
No,
so then we'll come to you. Okay, go.
I do like the argument.
Yes,
Yeah.
motive.
Yeah, but think about it, not of karma means action. And it's called law of cause and effect. Doesn't matter what you do, you are setting effects in motion. And again, intention, his intention was good. However, what happened?
People laugh.
Because
Cry, that's
laughing
true.
is fine. Like if we are building a thought form with a very focused thought, and you interrupt it, you have just dispersed it. So there's karma on the physical, there's karma on the emotional, there's karma on the mental and spiritual plane. So all of them have their own laws. So the effects are different.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Alinda.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
I'd just like to make two comments,
okay.
two
Yeah.
comments on comment, just to reaffirm what Craig has said. I think that's the only way we
Yes.
experience is through
Yes.
self-experiment. That's one. And the other one is that I think our English language attaches to karma often the negativity rather than the positivity. So when we self-explore, look for the good shit too. You know, like it's not all just comic apes and things, you know.
Would you focus on you become?
It's about what you bring to you, you know, those amazing coincidences and joys that show up. And you think, wow,
Yeah.
what did I do? I like it. So,
But then
so
we
take
have
the
to
joys with it too.
we have to remember both
For me.
negative and positive create attachment. So if you are thinking about liberation, then even good karma binds you to this life. So that's another discussion for another day.
Pam,
I was just going to say,
teacher's voice.
something a bit
Bring it
not
up, bring it
quite
up.
so happy is karma is also what you don't do. So like you let something neglect to look after something like your plant dies or don't look after your child properly, whatever it is. So it's also what you omit, not
Sins of
what you
omission.
do. Sins of omission, yeah. Thank you, Ben.
Yep.
So answering your question.
Yes.
Meeting, which I like. So Theosophical Society, I mean, I'm interested in spirituality in general, so it's like it's new. But I was interested in, so I walked past the building quite a few times. I was like, oh, that's quite interesting. But I read a history of like 19th century spirituality recently, and it mentioned like the startup of the Theosophical Society and university. So I was then like, oh, that's interesting. It's a continuous tradition of that particular line. So I was curious to come along and see, you know, how you guys
Check that out.
what was up. Yeah, exactly. I mean, because I find it quite an interesting blend of sort of pan spirituality, sort of supra ecumenicism, deep ecumenicism in some ways, but also interestingly connected to a few people's sort of psychic visions of Atlantis. So I was, you know, I'm not in a rush to understand how those two things combine, but that's kind of my curiosity of coming along was like, these guys up to.
Well, this is
How is it developed in the meantime?
Yeah, exactly.
questions about history of the TS.
Oh, that was funny. It was the one that stands out, although it has a few different ones, is the secret history of consciousness.
Well, the society provided a framework that didn't exist publicly in the West. And you can say that Blavatsky is the mother of the New Age. You know, you go all these New Age teachings, and a lot of other organizations have come from the formation of the society, which is great, fantastic. So it brought together a framework because, like in the 1850s, 60s, 70s, you have a lot of spiritualism going on, and they thought they were talking to their dead relatives and all the rest of that. But Theosophy put a framework around it, shows some of that wasn't entirely true, you know. So it is able to bring together various traditions and show that at the heart of them there is Theosophy, or the divine wisdom, and it allows you then to give yourself a spine, if you like, to hang everything else off and compare and judge, which is good, you know, because you've got to have an open mind and think and inquire into the nature of reality, and everything helps. So in that sense, it's, you know, it puts things in perspective. I mean, personally, it has for me. I'm still here after 33 years. Yesterday, my diploma that I got, I got it here, no, 33 years ago on the 12th of June. So, you know, I've been working away, trying to do the work, do the mahi. So, yeah, it allows us to look at many aspects of our own inquiry, and might sit alongside it and may not. And a lot of members, some people don't believe in reincarnation, they believe what they like, great. But if they, you know, if we all become better human beings because of it, then, you know, it's done some value in the world.
Okay, before we close, there are two more comments in the chat. One is Jeannie says, karma is not negative or positive, it's neutral, is it not?
Okay, there are consequences. There's just consequences, and there's a rebalancing that happens, because ultimately at the end of the spiritual path, we are karma less. We no longer have to reincarnate because we no longer have karma to work off, good or otherwise. Okay, so ultimately our goal is it be balanced and neutralized. So yes, neutral, Jeannie.
And then the next question is, could negative karma be stopped by choosing to stop keeping score with others and forget?
Yes.
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 What I used to
Not so
tell
sure
my
about that.
children was that karma is throwing boomerangs. If you've learned the lesson, you're not there when the boomerang comes back. Because you've learned.
Good
And of
analogy.
course, you have the old book and for free because you throw one boomerang and three of them come back.
Okay, did everyone hear that, what June said? Yep, okay, good. Oh, there's another one, Jeannie and Dee, I will answer
No,
your.
that was me.
Oh, okay, sorry. That's
I
you,
was just
Sashi.
telling I'll get to their question.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can close and we can continue our discussion downstairs.
Well, we've got,
Oh,
oh, yeah.
But close it.
Okay, all right. There's another little event to happen. All right, so thank you, everyone. It's great to have you here tonight, and I hope, you know, we got something out of it. We have some supper and we have a little special event as well.
We are going to have a birthday party now, so don't go away.
Yes. Okay, so I close the meeting. Thank you, team.